Welcome, gratitude seekers, to our wonderful interview with Dragos Roua. He defines himself as a serial online entrepreneur, personal development fanatic, blogger, author, dreamer, and risk taker. He also thinks that happiness is a process, not a goal. I'll let him tell you more about himself. Dragos?
Hi, Georgian. Hi, everybody listening. I'm happy you invited me, and I'm glad I can talk to your audience right now. I think the presentation quite fits me. It's my standard presentation from various outlets I use in social media and on my blog, but there are also things that are quite new, like running, ultra running. For me, during the last 4 years, running impacted my life quite deeply in many ways.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a bit about this, how it has impacted your life? I know that I'm following you on Facebook, and I've seen that you're going on many runs. And actually, on one of your articles, I saw that you made the connection between running and gratitude.
Yes. So basically, I started like everybody else by trying to lose weight 4 years ago. And I'm going to keep the story short. One thing led to another. And in like 1 year after I started to run, 1 year after my first marathon, I found myself running my first ultra marathon, which was a 60-kilometer race. And then the next year, I finished a race of 222 kilometers around Lake Balaton in Hungary.
God.
And it was a very profound experience, because when you go that far beyond your limits, you are forced to face everything you thought you know about yourself. And obviously you will find spots and places that are not very comfortable, and you have to deal with it. And you have to deal with it in the moment, because when you're running, you're already running. You cannot run from it. That's why running is it's a very therapeutical process for me, and it's kind of a sort of meditation in movement. It's a form of meditation. It is approached as meditation practice, where I go about taming my minds, not silencing, but slowing my minds, paying attention to things, and also to the way I react to the things around me, and trying to identify patterns, understand from where they come, and discern which patterns are constructive and which patterns are destructive. So running really helps with that, and especially ultra running. And there's a difference that your audience must know about it, because I consider everything in the running world, everything until marathon, as being a speed race. When I'm not a big fan of marathons or half marathons, because when you compete, you have to be always, competing with each other, trying to get over each other. Whereas in ultra marathon, the entire approach is different. People are in ultra marathons, they don't compete with each other, because you are considered winner when you cross the finish line, not the first guy that finishes. And ultra marathoners are traditionally very caring about each other, because when you run, let's say 100 kilometers, there are not many people, there are not many not so running there. Those races are like in the probably tens of people, not even hundreds. So when you're stranded away and you're alone, the sight and the presence of another human being is, or should be, a blessing. So coming back to gratitude, those are encounters that are fueling the feeling of gratitude. When when you are in a race, like in the spring, I'm going to tell you a little story about. In the spring, I attended to a race of 48 hours in Athens. It's a race where you run in circle in a 1 kilometer lap for 48 hours, something like that. And it's very good for the mind. It's very good because it's not point to point. It's there, and you have to be there. And like I told you before, it forces you to deal with yourself. So during this race, there was at this race participated one of the best runners in the world at the moment. His name is Dan Lawson, and Dan injured himself after 20 hours of running. After leading comfortably, in 20 hours he ran 197 kilometers. Just so you understand, it was
Wow, my God.
absolutely insane. And he had some muscle problems, and he had to stop. But he still had 28 hours to go. But he didn't left track. He stayed there. He stayed there with us, and he continued for the rest of the race to cheer everybody else. He
Oh
stayed
my
there at
God.
the left. Yeah, and he actually cheered everybody else, and it was absolutely amazing. Well, when you experience this type of attitudes, you cannot be anything else than grateful.
Wow.
That's what I mean by ultra running gives a lot of opportunity for gratitude to raise.
Wow, this is amazing. I really didn't know these things, and I really feel like the ultra marathon is like life is actually, because it's not about who gets there first to the end somehow. It's about caring for each other and finishing in a beautiful way. And
And
the
going
journey.
over your limits, basically,
Yeah.
because everything that you thought you couldn't do, you realize you can do.
Wow.
And there is a runner that is very the most the most famous runner of all times. His name is Yanis Kouros. He's a Greek guy.
Mm-hmm.
He runs so fast. He won an ultra marathon between Sydney and Melbourne 2 years in a row by more than 24 hours after the next guy. So
Oh
basically, he
my
was
God.
he was incredibly fast. And so in the third year, they gave him a 12 hours handicap. They say everybody starts now. Kuro starts after 12 hours. And even like that, he was able to go over everybody else and win. And Kuros says that he's still alive. Incidentally, he's a poet. He writes poetry, and he has studies in a college degree in music. And this guy says you cannot win an ultra marathon with your body because it's not designed. You win it with your mind. So you
Wow.
have to go over that autonomy between your body and your mind. At some point, he describes experiences of being out of body and directing his body from up above, like an avatar, like in a game,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
out of body experiences. So in an ultra marathon, you are forced to dwell on everything that you thought you couldn't do.
Wow. This is a really awesome thing, because I didn't have this experience, and it's really interesting how it can shift your perception. And yeah, I didn't think about it as a way of meditating. It's really interesting. So what I wanted to ask you is if you have a favorite quote on gratitude, and why do you choose this one?
Uh, I don't think I have a quote, but I have like something that, like a process that I identified, like a thing that I observed many, many times. And that thing is that gratitude acts more like water you spread over the flowers. So those flowers who are given water are the flowers who are resisting. So those parts of reality who are given gratitude, they usually gets more stronger, and they get more stamina, and they are there for longer periods of time. So whatever you're grateful for tends to get more life, and to endure more, to sustain more. So that's when I think of gratitude. I think of gratitude like a subset of focus. If reality is defined by your focus, where you look at, that's the reality.
Mm-hmm.
Gratitude is the structure that if I'm grateful for something, then I want to give to that something all the good stuff that's coming from me, and I want to continue to be there for more time. If
Wow.
I'm grateful, it means that I want that thing to go on and on and on, because that's what gratefulness means, to be ongoing with that thing.
Wow. Really, really interesting perspective. I really didn't think about it this way until now.
It was from somebody else, some
Mm-hmm.
from outside.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, what I also wanted to talk with you about, and to ask you if you have a meaningful experience that made you a more grateful person. Like, were you a naturally grateful person, or did you have a certain experience that made you into a more grateful person?
I think this grew, gradually in my lifetime. It's not one thing that made me be more grateful, but a certain network of things that happened. And one of the things that happened quite recently during the last few years is that I got in contact with a new perspective on the world, one that explains reality in a way that I can understand it, and that it actually makes sense. It's basically based in Buddhism, but not in the religious part of Buddhism, but in a scientific parts of Buddhism, because Buddhism is
Mm-hmm.
not a religion. There are no gods there. You don't worship anybody,
Mm-hmm.
and tells that everything uh, you ever have, it's in yourself, and your life therefore can be changed by yourself. So discovering these Buddhist principles, applying them for in various practices for extended period of time, made me realize that gratitude is a fundamental ingredient in the mix that can help us reach our full potential, along with attention, like focused meditation, or compassion, or the
Mm-hmm.
need for everybody to be happy.
How beautiful. Yeah, I also agree that with this, and I think that the beautiful thing about gratitude is that it's not just from one religion or from one way of seeing things. It's like love. It's universal. It's something that you just feel, and it doesn't have to be pinned down to one religion or another.
Yeah, that's actually very true. It's very true. It's universal.
Yeah, exactly. Because I found that in my research on gratitude, I found it in different faiths, and that was really powerful and beautiful to see. Um, what I also wanted to talk with you about is if you used gratitude to get to where you are right now. If gratitude has helped you get to where you are right now in business or in life.
Oh, yes, like I told you, I had many encounters. At one point, I remember I did an exercise like 6 or 7 years ago. It was something like, it was even called a gratitude experience. I jotted down at the end of each day things that I was grateful for. It's a very simple form of, experiencing gratitude, or in other words, determining your mind to stay focused on gratitude by using discipline and the power of habits. Because if you do it many times, it will become a habit. So after that, I didn't see any immediate results, because there is always a sort of inertia in what
Yeah,
we're doing, and we tend to create very quick and irrational correlation between what happened to us and how we feel right now. If we feel right now good, we tend to associate it with whatever we do in that moment, but we're not like that. Whatever we experience right now is the effect of the causes that are in the past. Okay,
yeah,
so basically, it's not that we're feeling good and we are doing good. Most of the time, there is this conflict. We are doing something that will not generate positive consequences in the future, but we feel good in the moment, like when we eat something very tasteful and we overeat, and we
yeah,
eat so much and we say, oh my God, it's so good. But the effect of this is that in the future, we're going to feel overweight, we're going to gain weight and stuff like that. So after a while, after doing this exercise, I started to feel patterns, not so much in what the world sent to me, but as I as I started to see the world, because the shifting of the focus toward things that I was grateful for took out energy from the things that I was conflicting with, that I was angry with, or things that were, I was regretting stuff or stuff like that. And the more I was grateful for the tiny little things that I had in my life, the more those things faded away. So, you know, in a sense, gratitude was like a driver trying to uh, um, free me from the burden of, you know, experiencing tension and a lot of, you know, stress in my life.
Mm-hmm.
To put it very simple. So, but it's important to note down that just because you're grateful today, it doesn't mean that tomorrow you're going to be all shiny and stuff. It's something that has to be part of yourself to become a lifestyle, to become a conscious choice every time, even in moments when you feel you have no reason to be grateful for, or
Yeah.
especially
Yeah,
during those reasons
especially,
when you
yeah.
feel you have no reason. That's the most important point where you say, okay, it's a shitty situation right now, but at least I can be grateful for that and that and that. And like that gratitude, it's become all pervasive.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Um, what I'm also very curious about is if you could go back in time, like 10 years or 20 years back in time, what would you tell your younger self about gratitude?
Well, I don't think I'm gonna say something, but there is something that I do. It's called the or 1-5-10 exercise. If I could go back in time and talk to myself, I'm not sure I'm going to do this. I wouldn't sign up for that because what I am right now is the complete results of everything I did in the past. So I cannot
Yeah, I
change
agree.
that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what I do often, and I highly recommend it, is an exercise called 1-5-10. It's an exercise in which you sit in an isolated place, like in a room, and you put aside at least half an hour, and you start a process of visualizing yourself how you were 1 year ago, then 5 years ago, then 10 years ago, and you try to find similar patterns, you know, in each time frame. So, for instance, if you think in terms of financial status, 1 year, 5 years, and 10 years, you think 1 year ago I had a lot of money, 5 years not so much, 10 years at all, and stuff like that. And you also think about relationships, and you also think about health, and you try to picture a way, a path, you know, a growing, and you try to see patterns, how you were during at those specific periods in time. And then the second part of the exercise is trying to project the same pattern into the future, like 1-5-10 into the future. And
Mm-hmm.
that's equally interesting because um, once you do this with a lot of involvement and you are honest with yourself and you really, really do your best to identify the moments, you realize how dynamic life is and how difficult it is for you to predict something really interesting. A lot of us have this preconceived level of life. Like when I'm 30, I'm going to get married. When I'm 40, I'm going to travel around the world. When I'm 50, I'm going to retire. When I'm 60, I'm going to take care of my grandchildren and stuff like that. Well, it doesn't happen like that. You know, it doesn't
Yeah.
happen like that. And putting yourself in the middle of those situations allows you to have a better understanding of your own personal path, of your own personal choices, and of your own personal life, how this unfolds based on your own decisions, not on the patterns that you get from society or, I don't know, from a conventional wisdom, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But in this exercise, if I would try to identify the gratitude, like I try to identify, like I told, finance,
Yeah,
relationships,
or
health.
health. Yeah.
Yes, if I try to identify gratitude, I would say that it evolved tremendously. I mean, like 10 years ago, maybe I was doing it instinctively, but only based on, you know, common sense. Okay,
Yeah.
let's be grateful every once in a while. Okay, like when there was like for Easter and for I don't know, New Year. So let's be grateful that we have another year. And then 5 years ago, I started to recognize, after I did those exercises, like I told you, the gratitude challenge, I started to realize to discern the importance of gratitude, to isolate it and to try to work directly with itself. And 1 year ago, if I look at it, it was like already part of my lifestyle. Like I told you, I did a lot of practices, and
Mm-hmm.
I still consider myself to follow a Buddhist moral and ethic code. And my practice right now is the way I'm living my life. But until you get to that level, you do try so many. For instance, I did a thing like for 1 year in a row. I noted down every 2 hours one of the things that I committed myself to. In Buddhism, there are those 10 vows, don't kill, don't steal, don't be sexually promiscuous, tell the truth, stuff like that. There are 10 vows like this. And every 2 hours, I put an alert on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
And every 2 hours, I was cycling through them, 6 every day. And then the next day again. And during an entire year, this practice really, really opens your eyes and you start to understand. First of all, it's frightening because you realize how many shit you bring into your life if you're not aware. That's
Yeah,
frightening.
yeah.
In the first part, it's like, oh my God, I have to be. And of course, a lot of practices in this code of 10 vows have close connections with gratitude, like don't hurt anyone, don't gossip, don't talk bad, be compassionate, try to help as much as you can. Okay, so when you do this, you realize, oh my God, I'm doing so much stupid shit with my life, so I have to be really, really careful. But after a while, after a few months, when you get into the flow, you realize that this is an easier way to live your life than the other one, and the more you incorporate it into your life, the more you internalize it, the better you feel and the easier it gets to follow this lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally get it. And what I also wanted to talk to you about is you have an article. I was thinking about this. Um, it's not that easy for men to be grateful, to show gratefulness, and you have an article on this, and I found it really, really interesting. Do you want to say a few things about it? If you have some tips
Yes,
for men to be more grateful.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think in terms of Western, cliche, man, a man is defined by his strength and aggressiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And while this may have been true during the war age, I mean, during the dark age, during the even the 20th centuries, where the 20th century was basically filled with wars, I think that this way of understanding what a man does was appropriate. But we're past that way. Gratitude is not something that is gender dependent. Gratitude is universal. If you're grateful for something, it doesn't mean you're weak. If you're grateful for something, it doesn't mean you show up your feminine side, which, by the way, there's nothing wrong with having a feminine side as a man. It's completely okay to show that you're sensitive. And inside point, women's dig this big time. So if you want to, okay, women really dig sensitivity in a guy. If you or one of your listeners are in the dating periods of their life, do make use of sensitivity
Mm-hmm.
intensely, and that's always a winner. But grateful is something that is universal. It means that you care for other forms of life and that you care for other people and that you eventually wish for everybody to be happy, and
Mm-hmm.
that's not gender dependent. So I think this is a cliche and it's expressed especially during in the Western civilization based on the historic context that I described earlier, but I think it starts to gradually vanish away and I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. I was thinking about the tips that you gave for men, like to express gratitude more freely because it's okay. It's even if it's like you said, it may be seen as a more feminine side of things. It's something that's great. It's a good habit to have, to be grateful and to actually show gratitude. And it was interesting for me when I read the article that I sometimes had this thing with wanted to express my gratitude, but didn't want to seem too like um, too weird or something like that, because it's not something that all people do, and it's not sometimes people, for instance, they see it as um, wanting something else from them, like not just, okay, I'm really grateful for this.
Mhm.
What do you want from me?
Exactly, exactly, exactly. The article is called Seven Ways to Express Gratitude as a Man, and it was written quite recently at the beginning of this year,
Mhm.
2016.
I will post a link in the
Yeah,
article with the interview. Yeah.
and it basically something about not being, all mushy and crying and something, but you can do things like offer protection or offer a service unexpectedly to someone, or donate your money or your time, or I don't know, volunteer, or simply smiling. That's enough many times.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Awesome, awesome. Okay, I will post the link in the article, um, and anyone who wants to see the article to read it all, and they can find it there. So, is there anything that you're doing in your life right now that helps you be grateful consistently? Do you have a practice or an activity that you do consistently?
Yes, like I told you, is meditation in
Mm-hmm.
various forms. It's moving meditation, like my running, but it's also plain and simple meditation, like when you try to silence your mind or you try to gain uh, a very focused and perceptive mind. And the terms, I think the technical terms are shamatha and vipassana. Shamatha is the type of meditation where you have to have a very still and settled mind, no thoughts are running like like a mayhem in your head, which
Yeah.
happens in the modern world. And vipassana is a way of being very perceptive, being acutely aware of something, perceiving every detail of everything that you see, gaining insight. And those types of meditations, of exercises that I'm doing as often as I can. Running basically makes me meditate pretty much every day, or on a daily basis. So, like the answer is yes. I'm doing something that helps me become a more grateful person, and this is the practice of meditation. And I highly recommend it because it's a focal point. Your mind is the point where your world originates. Your mind creates or reconstructs what we call reality in such a way that we can actually manage our way through the life. So if you really look at it, that's the focal point. You shouldn't focus so much on, I don't know, improving your surroundings. First try to improve your mind, and then you will see more clear what you have to do.
Wonderful, wonderful. And while you're running, and this is really, really interesting for me. So while you're running, do you do something in particular, or do you just clear your mind, or how does this active meditation work actually?
First of all, meditation doesn't mean you empty your mind, because there's not such a thing as an empty mind. You cannot
Mm-hmm.
silence your mind, but you become an observer. You don't get involved so much with whatever you think. When you think, you realize that that thought is not reality. You start to observe it. It's just a thought, and you start to monitor them, to identify them as they rise and fade away, as they rise and fade away. And this process in times creates a special type of awareness. And one of the first symptoms is that you become gradually more calm, become calmer and more settled. And you're not so, itchy as we tend to be. You become less reactive. Things are happening. I surprised myself many times when I run in the park, when I saw dogs barking and the first reflex is to just go away and start running, or what's happening here? And I say, okay, there's a dog barking. Oh, nice. Okay, and that's it. So that's one of the things that I do. So the process of meditation is, although it's something that is not very esoteric, it's something that is really complex to say. The end result of meditation is something very simple, but the process in itself, it's quite complex. You have first to pay attention to your thoughts and not to identify with the thoughts. And then you start to understand what actually triggers those thoughts. And when you realize what triggers those thoughts, you realize you have some penchants for something. Like, when a person is a smoker, for instance,
Yeah.
even if that person doesn't smoke in the moment, doesn't have that thought, that person have the tendency to smoke. Even us, we don't have the tendency to be, we are not depressed all the time, but we do have the tendency. And meditation helps you discover these tendencies that we have. And if you have the tendency to be depressed, you realize that and you say, okay, I have a tendency. And just like a smoker, you start to work with that thing and say, okay, I accept that I have the tendency to be depressive and I have to work with this. So every time I monitor a thought arising, I will say, okay, this is depressive thoughts. Let's look at it. Don't believe it. It might reflect a very gloomy situation, like I don't have a lot of money. But that doesn't mean this is set in stone. That doesn't mean it cannot change, because depression says you're doomed, you're gonna die, everything, the world will collapse, and you are so unhappy. No, it's okay. Just look at it, work with it, and let it flow.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. Really beautiful way of seeing meditation, and it has really shifted some things in me also.
I'm happy. I'm happy about it.
Yeah. So where can people find you? Where can people see your work?
They can find me online. I have a blog in English, dragosroua.com. It's my name and .com. And in that blog specifically, I have a couple of blog posts that are very interesting. They are called 100 Ways to Live a Better Life and 100 Ways to Screw Up Your Life. And those posts turned to be quite viral. When I wrote them 5 years ago, they're still getting like hundreds of visits every day,
Nice.
like 7 years after they've been written. And based on those blog posts, I wrote 2 books that got translated into other languages. And based on them, I created a product, which is a course, an online course. Basically, it's 100 days challenge with 1 video each day. So that challenge, you can go to my blog post, and on the top posts page, find 100 ways to live a better life and 100 ways to screw up your life blog post. And from there, you'll see everything. There are a few videos guiding to how to get into that challenge, and if that challenge is a good fit for you.
Awesome. So if you like challenges, Dragos has a great challenge for you. And if you're also perseverant, because he was perseverant enough to make 100 videos for you, so that's interesting. Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't easy to do 100 videos, but you persevered enough. It was a challenge for you also.
It wasn't easy to write 100 things in the first place. So that was the most difficult part.
Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't. So thank you very much, Dragos, for your time and for all the amazing tips and for the life experience that you shared with us. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, and I'm wishing to all your listeners a very good day, and just be grateful.